Some paintings hide their darkness in plain sight. When William Holman Hunt unveiled this painting in 1854, the Victorian public did not know what to make of it. At first glance, the scene appears entirely domestic, perhaps even trivial. Many innocent gallery-goers assumed they were looking at a minor, momentary disagreement between a brother and a sister. Others simply gazed at it in blank wonder, utterly baffled, and walked away hopelessly confused. But they were missing the point entirely. This is not a depiction of a family squabble. This is a psychological thriller captured in oil paint. The room we are looking at is a meticulously crafted cage. And the story playing out between the man and the woman is one of exploitation, sudden realization, and a desperate, fleeting chance at salvation. The painting is called The Awakening Conscience, and once you understand how to decode the objects scattered across this claustrophobic room, you will realize that this is one of the most brutally honest and deeply personal confessions in the history of art. To understand what is truly happening here, we first have to look at the environment. This room is far too gaudy, far too cluttered, and overwhelmingly bright to be a respectable 19th century Victorian parlour. The furniture possesses a fatal newness, an unscuffed, overly polished sheen that screams of nouveau-riche vulgarity. This is because we are looking at a maison de convenance, a secret house rented specifically for illicit meetings. Hunt actually went to the trouble of hiring just such a room in St. John's Wood, a notorious area for these kinds of arrangements, to ensure his setting was ruthlessly authentic. Look at the young woman rising from the man's lap. Her hands are clasped together in a moment of sudden tension, drawing our eye directly to them. If you look closely at her left hand, you will notice that she wears rings on nearly every finger, except the one that matters. There is no wedding ring. She is a kept mistress, a woman who has been installed in this gilded cage for the sole amusement of the wealthy man beside her. Hunt leaves us breadcrumbs of her inevitable doom scattered all over the room. The man's discarded top hat and glove suggest he has arrived for a hurried, temporary assignation. Underneath that same table, half hidden in the shadows, a cat is sadistically toying with a bird that has a broken wing, a direct, merciless symbol of the woman's own entrapment and impending ruin. On the floor, a tangled skein of yarn represents the complex web of dependency she is caught in. Even the clock on the piano is kept concealed under a glass dome, as if time itself is suffocating in this artificial space. The artist is showing us that every single luxury in this room has been bought and paid for, including the woman herself. So, what exactly is happening in this exact split second? Why is she suddenly standing up? The answer lies in the music. The man is idly playing the piano, and we can actually read the sheet music sitting in front of him. It is Thomas Moore's "Oft in the Stilly Night." The lyrics of this particular song speak of missed opportunities, lost innocence, and the sad memories of a much happier past. As he carelessly sings the words, something clicks. The song acts as an accidental catalyst. It pierces through the suffocating fog of her compromised life and triggers a violent spiritual awakening. She is struck by the sudden, horrifying realization of what she has become and the grim reality of where she is headed. As one prominent critic of the era noted, the exquisite detail of the hem of her white dress only reminds us how quickly it will be soiled with dirt and rain when she is eventually cast out into the streets. But Hunt does not leave her entirely without hope. This is where the painting executes its most brilliant visual trick. Behind the woman's back sits an enormous, heavily framed mirror. Mirrors were deeply symbolic in Victorian art, often representing vanity and narcissism. But here, Hunt uses it to completely shatter the claustrophobia of the room. If you look into the reflection, you don't just see the back of the woman and the face of her seducer. You see what she is looking at. The mirror reflects a wide open window, flooding the dark artificial room with brilliant natural sunlight. Outside, there is a flourishing, vibrant spring garden. She is turning her back on the polished rosewood piano, the site of her seduction, and staring directly into the light of redemption. The mirror acts as a portal. It exposes the horrific duality of her existence, the dead, manufactured world of her sin inside, and the pure, living world of salvation outside. Hunt was deeply obsessed with Jan van Eyck's famous Arnolfini portrait, a painting renowned for its own complex use of a background mirror. But while Van Eyck used his mirror to show witnesses entering a room, Hunt uses his to show the only possible escape route out of one. But the true genius and the deepest controversy of the awakening conscience lies not in its objects, but in the people depicted. The woman who modelled for the mistress was a young working-class barmaid named Annie Miller. Hunt had met her when she was just 15 years old and quickly became completely infatuated with her. He genuinely believed he could save her. He concocted an elaborate idealistic plan to educate her, reform her manners, and ultimately marry her. Hunt's grand plan for Annie perfectly mirrored the narrative of this painting. A fallen woman in desperate need of a spiritual and social awakening. But life rarely imitates art so neatly. Soon after finishing the painting, Hunt left England for the Holy Land, leaving strict instructions with his friends on how Annie should be managed and educated in his absence. The romance eventually collapsed under the weight of his tedious moralizing, and they both went on to marry other people. But here is the final, chilling twist. Who is the man in the painting? Who is the smarmy, arrogant seducer keeping this woman trapped in a gilded cage? According to contemporary sketches made by Hunt's close friend, John Everett Millais, the man at the piano bears a striking resemblance to a young William Holman Hunt himself. Whether consciously or subconsciously, Hunt projected his own face onto the villain of his own moral fable. He may have viewed himself as Annie's savior, but by paying for her time, isolating her, and attempting to mold her into his ideal vision of a woman, he was occupying the exact same position as the wealthy seducer. It is a brutal, unintentional self-portrait of a man coming to terms with his own hypocrisy. And the psychological intensity of this realization was almost too much for the real world to handle. When the painting's buyer, a wealthy industrialist named Thomas Fairbairn, hung the canvas in his home, he found he could not stomach it. The original expression on the woman's face was one of such profound horror and visceral pain that Fairbairn couldn't bear to look at it day after day. He forced Hunt to repaint her face into the slightly softer, more ambiguous look of realization we see today. Even altered, the painting remains a masterpiece of psychological tension. You can find a museum-quality reproduction of this exact painting at our store, viewcrypt.com. It is a beautiful way to not only decorate your walls, but also to directly support this channel, allowing me to stay independent and keep diving deep into the art that shapes our world. Link is in the pinned comment below. See you in the next one.